Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of How Stories Work. Today, I'm going to go over something that I think is pretty phenomenal, and that's the ability of subtext to predict narrative all the way down to the level of scenes. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I put this out a couple months back. For the first time ever in recorded history, a predictive narrative algorithm that defines the subtext driving every scene. Our first example, the Prestige. Now, why did we choose The Prestige as the first example of this? If you're familiar with the film, you know it's one of those films that starts at the end, and then goes to the middle, and then goes back to the beginning, bounces back and forth in time until at the very end you figure out what was actually going on in the story. The interesting thing about what Subtext was able to do is that based on the premise of the meaning of the story, it was able to predict the structure of the story as it actually happened. Not how it was all twisted up and how it ended up in the final product of the film, but the natural order of events from beginning to end, as if you were just telling the story without all those weaving techniques. And that to me is a pretty incredible thing. If you're familiar with the way that Subtext breaks down stories, you know it breaks it down into four through lines. You have the objective story plot, the main character through line, the influence character through line, and the relationship story through line. What we've done so far is we've captured all the beats that happen in the objective story plot, and just today we added the main character beats. So if we come down here, you can see right here, these are the different acts. So this would be Act 1. The middle two here would be the familiar Act 2 that everybody is familiar with, so Act 2A and 2B. And then the last one here, the last signpost, would be Act 3. These are the four through lines, and they each go through their own thematic concerns in each act. So this is a broad view of the thematic conflict. If we come down here into the scene story beats, these are the individual scenes that happen. In the same way that we had 4 acts overall, we also have 4 scenes in each act. So then we have 64 scenes here. But the really exciting part is what Subtext can do now is not only just tell you what's supposed to happen in each act and then what's supposed to happen in each scene, but then it also gives you the structure of each and every beat in each and every scene. This has never been done before. This hasn't been in any previous application. Subtext is the first time this has ever been available to you. And the really incredible part about this is there's no beat left unturned. You can see here 4 beats for every scene. Here we are now in Act 2 of the plot, goes through the whole thing. And this is, again, the order in which it happened in real life, because a narrative structure is a schematic of meaning. It's not a structure of how to put a story together. It's actually trying to communicate a message to the audience. And that message is this premise up here at the top. Premise for the Prestige reads, however bleak, when you abandon having a desire for superiority, you can understand that the sacrifices you made were worth it. So once you plug that into Subtext, not only do you get these acts here, not only do you get these scenes here, but you also get each and every single scene beat, the beginning, the middle, and the end of each scene, and how to turn those scenes from one scene to the next. So when I say it was a predictive model, how does that actually work? Well, if I came in here into the premise builder and I wanted to create a mystery thriller, same kind of story as The Prestige, Hugh Jackman's character, he doesn't have a fixed attitude problem. His issue is the fact that he comes from aristocracy. He's actually a nobleman, and he's trying to slum around with other magicians, and he feels like this is what he deserves. The influence that's coming from the Christian Bale character is the fact that he has this obsessive drive to be the greatest magician of all time. So that's how they work against each other. The objective story plot is all about the physics of being the very best magician, and then their friendship is what plays out in the relationship story. As with all Christopher Nolan films, this would be in the profound family of narrative elements. And the profound family has the objective story and understanding. So whenever you talk about the plot and what the problems are, it all comes from understandings or misunderstandings as to who is who. The main character's personal issue will be having something to do with the past. The influence character's challenge will have something to do with memory or being able to recognize something. When he recognizes in the Chinese magician at the very beginning, oh, he's actually putting on a show right here. That's the challenge to Hugh Jackman that helps him grow as a character. And then their relationship story is conceptualizing, putting all the pieces together and figuring out exactly what's going on. It's a conventional mystery thriller, which means the Major plot points are action driven. And then the specific element that is driving the character. So each one of these pairs describes the crossover point between character and plot. Stories are neither character driven nor plot driven. They're actually a combination of both. And that crossover point is one of these pairs of elements here. It's also the place where you would get that you and I are both alike argument. And in The Prestige, the Hugh Jackman character is somebody who is driven by desire, always wanting to be the best and always wanting to seek revenge. Whereas the Christian Bale character, Borden, is someone who has a tremendous amount of natural ability. And that's where the dramatic argument rests. So once you pick that, then you come down here and you can pick what organizes the structure of the premise. So we're using reason here. It's a linear cause and effect story. The point of the premise, what you're trying to say is you're trying to argue abandoning a particular point of view. And it's not a triumph. It's not a great happy ending. It's one of those bleak Christopher Nolan endings where there is success and finally understands how Borden was able to do his magic trick, but it turned out to be emotionally a bad thing for him. That's what makes the story a bleak experience. You can see here, Subtxt figures out their character arcs because Angier is going to be abandoning that desire for the ability. So once he has that ability and he's far superior to Borden, then his story is complete, but at a great cost. And then Christian Bale's character, Borden, is driven by perception, which from beginning to end, the kind of trouble that he creates for everyone comes from this motivation to always mess with people's perception, whether or not he's Sarah's husband or he's not, whether or not he loves her, whether or not he's able to do this on his own. It's all perception from beginning to end. Looking at the final premise, when you abandon desire, that would be the central character element here. So craving something, which is exactly what that Nikola Tesla character warns him about. Abandon that, and then you can finally understand everything. That's the goal of the story, is for him to finally understand what is really going on. When you have that, all you do is click build story, and then Subtxt comes in and builds out the complete story from beginning to end, telling you exactly what's supposed to happen in each act. So here we have the magicians learning something, and then competing against each other, then controlling who can do the actual great transported man, and then at the end, understanding exactly what's going on. The main character through line, Angier, starts out in the past where he's that man of aristocracy and feels like he deserves certain things. And then in progress, he devolves into somebody who's willing to get his hands dirty when he buries Borden's brother. Then he goes to Colorado, and then the whole stuff with Nikola Tesla in the future. You don't want this. You're setting yourself up for a big downfall until at the end when he has to come to terms with the present state of things. It predicts exactly what's supposed to happen in each act, then tells you what's supposed to happen in each scene. And then, of course, the new thing is it tells you exactly how each scene is supposed to unfold. And what's really great here is that it predicts it so well that if I come down here into the main character, and there's one that I noticed here, which was, where is it? Here. So in this scene, abdicating responsibility for welcome. So the thematic issue in this scene is responsibility. And this is when he tests out the machine for the first time. It starts out with this idea that if you keep up the inertia of this machine, it's going to bring ruin to you. And then this to me is the most incredible thing here, projection. And it's supposed to be an activity. And this is when Angier tests the machine on himself and kills his double. He actually physically projects himself. He creates a projection. And this is something that was predicted by the narrative model. This wasn't something that I looked at the film and then figured, oh, this is supposed to happen. No, based on what the meaning of the story was, this is what Subtxt predicts will happen in the third scene of the third signpost, which for most people is Act 2B. So if you've ever been stuck in the middle of the second act and you want to know what to write, Subtxt can definitely help you out. If you'd like to look at this, all you got to do is head to Subtxt and search for The Prestige, and you'll be able to read all of what we discovered. And as soon as I get the influence character and the relationship story through line up, I'll be telling you all about that as well. As always, if you have any questions about how Subtxt can help you figure out how your story works, please let me know and I will do my best to help you. See you tomorrow.